Hey guys, Jack's your Fred mechanic. Today we're going to be working on our 2000 Jeep Wrangler. We're going to be taking care of the AC compressor on this thing today. For those of you who've been following along in the past, you know that I replaced the evaporator core and the heater core. So this is going to follow along with that, where we needed to go ahead and recharge the system afterward. I'm going to put a new compressor on this before I do recharge the system. It's a 20 years old, so I just figured go ahead and do it at the same time. I've already replaced the accumulator on this thing, so we won't need to do that. We did that on the previous video when we did the evaporator core. So I guess we just need to get after it. I've got the two bolts holding the lines on to the compressor removed, and notice if you come along here, you'll also need to remove this 8mm that's holding the lines in place in order to be able to lift the lines up off the compressor. You just need to remove your electrical connector, and that'll allow this to move up out of the way. You can do that just by pinching and pulling. That's your top bolt. We'll need to remove that one. And then there's a bolt underneath. And there's also that electrical connector. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and remove the belt. Next thing we need to do is get our tool on the tensioner, and it's a 1/2 inch, not a 3/8. I'm going to pay special attention to how the belt came off so you can remember how to put it back on. Next thing we're going to do is unplug that connector. You do that by pinching the back end of it. On this back side, pinch here. And pull. Get that up out of the way. So I ended up using a breaker bar and an extension and a swivel. The back bolt anyway. Crawl up underneath your vehicle. Get to this lower bolt on the compressor. It'll be a 15mm. You'll want to completely remove this lower bolt. There's one bolt left. It's right back up in there. You might be thinking, how in the world are we going to get to it? And so I'm going to show you how I did it. It's a 15mm. I'll just put another wrench on the end of it. That'll get it loose. And then you can get back in there and pull the bolt the rest of the way. All I'm doing is turning it, flipping this over, turning it, flipping it over, turning it. If you can get a ratchet in there that's comfortable for you, go for it. So we've managed to get all our bolts out, and the compressor's still in the same position. So we're going to take our pry bar, see if we can't get it in there between the block and the compressor, and just wiggle it a little bit. You can see it's already started moving. So now you're like, how are you going to get that out of there? Well, we're going to take it out from underneath. Alright, got it loose. Looks like it's hanging up on the radiator hose a little bit, but it's rubber. It'll move. I'm not sure if you can see. I'm pulling it down in here. We got the old one off, so we'll check out our new compressor. Looks like it comes with a new gasket. That's good. Kind of look it over. Looks like everything bolts up the same. We'll need to remove this manifold and install it onto the compressor. And we'll see if we can get it put back in the opposite order. Make sure you get all your bolts started, and then tighten them all up. Compressor's bolted up. Now's a good time to go ahead and put your connector back on. Next, we're going to replace our O-rings on our refrigerant lines before we bolt them on. We got a kit. If you need a kit, link down below in the description. Go ahead and get your O-rings out that match. One's a little smaller than the other size. And then you'll need a pick to get it off. tighten them up. Make sure that you plug your high pressure switch back in. Listen for the click. Don't forget to put your center line clamp retaining bolt back in. Put our belt back on, same way we took it off. Anytime that you're going to replace the AC compressor, it's a fantastic idea to replace the orifice tube. And generally, you will not get a warranty on your AC compressor if you don't replace the orifice tube and the accumulator. We replaced the accumulator on this whenever we replaced the evaporator. Now, we've just got done doing the compressor, so we're going to go ahead and do the orifice tube. Now, here's where it gets a little odd. So I looked up in the repair manual, and it says that the orifice tube is not serviceable, that it is in line in the low pressure refrigerant line. And that's from your evaporator core down to your condenser. This is the one I'm talking about. Now, most vehicles, the orifice tube is found right inside the evaporator core. This vehicle, it is not. There's actually a YouTube video of a gentleman that claims that you have to cut a pipe in half to find the orifice tube. I watched the video. Maybe that's where he found his. He didn't go any further into it. But I located the orifice tube, and I found it on the end that connects to the condenser. It was further up inside here. The big indicator is you can find these dimples just on the inside of this tube, and that restricts that orifice from going any further in. I ended up having to use a pair of needle nose pliers to reach down inside there. Myself, I'm just going to replace the orifice tube. This is a close-up. This is how it was in there, and it was shoved all the way back in. And these are the dimples I'm talking about right here. Once you get your orifice tube out, you may look at it and see how much debris is collected up. If there's any chunks of metal, that would be signs of the compressor failing and possibly a clogged up condenser. So you don't see a whole lot of debris on here, that's a good sign. Now I've got the orifice tube removed. I've chosen to reuse this line. I'm going to go ahead and flush it. I've got some flush and clean. I'm just going to pour a little bit inside there, and then I'm going to evacuate it with the little bit of compressed air. And it doesn't take much. This is specifically designed for R134A. And it evaporates pretty quick. You can put a rag on one end if you want. This line's completely flushed. I've already replaced the O-rings on this end when I did the evaporator core. I need to go ahead and replace this O-ring. And since I'm at the condenser, I'm going to remove and replace the other line that goes from the condenser over to the compressor. That'll take care of all our O-rings. We'll use those from our O-ring kit that we already purchased. And then we should have all new O-rings in the system. We should be in pretty good shape. Now before we go any further, we need to put our new orifice tube in there. You need one, link in the description below. Make sure that you put the white end in first, same way the old one came out. And this one's a little stubborn. So this one wasn't going in as far as I wanted it to. I did look, they were about the same length. This one's just a little bit longer and it's got these extra nubs on it, our new one. So I'm just going to clip that end off of it. You can even put it in as far as it'll go up to the dimples inside there. Make sure I don't forget to do the other condenser line. New O-rings. Our lines are back installed, compressors in there, new O-rings, new orifice tube. Next step is going to be to hook up a set of gauges and a vacuum pump. I purchased a set from Viva Home. I'll put a link down below to all this stuff. If you want to check this stuff out, we got a set of gauges and a vacuum pump. This is a really nice set. This pump did come with its own oil. You just fill it up in here to the sight level on the side. And then we want to go ahead and hook up our gauges. You got your low side connector over here on the line you just replaced your orifice tube in. Want to connect that, tighten it up. And then we'll need to connect our high pressure side right behind the radiator fan. And the next thing I'm going to do is connect the yellow line to my vacuum pump. And we need to plug in our pump. Well, if you can read that, you can see I was supposed to remove that cap. I left it on there. When I turned it on, it just blew it off. So you know what's going to happen if you accidentally leave that on. But we'll go ahead and turn your pump on. Make sure that you open your valves. And we're going to let that pump run until it pulls this down on the gauge. Let me show you here. When I turn the pump on, you can see it's here around 0. We want it to pull down to about 30. I'm sure how close you can see that. Turn it on. Make sure our valves are open. You can see it's immediately pulling it down. So we're just going to let this run and pull vacuum for about 5 minutes, and then we'll turn the pump off and we'll leave these set for about 30 minutes it recommends. You can let it set longer if you want. And what we're looking for is to make sure that the vacuum stays where it's at. If you lose vacuum, then you've got a leak somewhere and you've got to go back and recheck your work. Now that we're happy with the pressure reading, it's held for over 30 minutes. We can go ahead and remove the pump. You want to tighten your valves. Then we'll remove the line. Get the pump out of the way. Now we're going to need some Freon and a way to get the Freon out. Got one of these kits. If you need one, description below. Same with the Freon or the gauges, anything that we use. Inside the kit, it's got some tools, some fittings, and what we're looking for. This end connect right onto our yellow line. The other end we're going to connect to one of our Freon canisters. This vehicle takes 20 ounces. Each can holds 12 ounces. The can is designed to be used flat, this side up only. Now we're just about ready to fill our system with Freon. But here's something I found interesting. The auto repair manuals, they recommend that you fill the Freon in the low side out of the cans. The machines, you fill the system on the high side out of the machine. The can, on the side of the can, says fill on the low side only. The instructions that come with the compressor tell you to fill on the high side first and then fill the high side and low side. So I guess we're going to try and stick with the warranty part of it and fill it the way that they recommend. So we've got our can on. I'm just going to open it up by turning the valve in. It's in. And according to that manual, they say to allow it on the high side first. I did that. I don't see a whole lot of difference here. Then it says allow the low side after that. Alright, start the vehicle. Turn the air conditioning on. So you want to allow this to continue. Right now it's at idle. You can rev it up to about 1400 RPM, which I'm going to do. And then that should empty out the rest of the contents of this can. Our main objective is to make it cold, right? So in order to make sure we're getting it cold, we've got to be able to measure the temperature. You can use a thermostatic gun, infrared temperature gun, pull the trigger, point at it. You can shine this down inside the vent and that'll give you a digital reading, or you can purchase one of these. I prefer this method. This is just like, well, this one's an actual auto air conditioning thermometer. It says it right on the label. We'll take this and we'll stick it right in the vent. Here, let me show you. So all we need to do is take this out, slide it right inside the vent, and then we can just read what temperature we're at. All right, here's the compressor cycling. So I think we can all agree that that's going to take a long time. I'm kind of an impatient guy, and I'm going to show you a way to hurry that up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a paper clip and I'm going to jump across the low pressure side switch to make the compressor come on and stay on and empty this can. Kind of difficult to see. Excuse me, right on top of the accumulator. That's the switch right here. We need to unplug that. We can take our paper clip, make a little don't quite have an entire can in. As you can see, we're getting a little closer. It's kind of icing up my camera. So we started at 80 and it's blowing just above 60 right now. It feels pretty cold to me, but we still want to get her down close to 40. Again, we still don't have the entire can in, but just keep going. I've got one entire can of Freon in it at this point, and it's about 50 at idle. So it's getting closer. We just need to get another half can in. We're good. Remove your empty can, set it aside, install your new can. At this point, I'm no longer using the jumper. I've just got it set. I put the switch back in on the low side. I'm just allowing it to do itself. If you get in a hurry, you can go back to the jumper. I think you got the idea of how to get the rest of the Freon into your system. You hold the RPMs at 1400 RPMs, 1500 RPMs. That will cause the compressor to continue a little bit more. So your can's empty. Then you can switch over to the other can to finish topping. So I finished filling it up. Here's our final reading. It's pretty darn good. 81 degrees outside. AC system feels icy cold. So I'm thrilled to death. Alright, so now we got everything taken care of. AC compressors put on. Got a new Orifice tube, got new O-rings. Put in an evaporator core earlier. The entire system's been gone through and successfully recharged. We got cold air coming out of the dash, confirmed with one of these thermometers. If you need any of the parts or any of the tools that I used, I got it listed down below in the comments. If you got any questions or comments yourself, if you see something I did that could have been done a little easier, go ahead, put it in there for everybody else to see. We all got to be in this together, right? Thanks for watching.